Sucky, punchy, stabby, throwy, zappy, floaty, explodey, pink puffball is back. No, not that one. Kirby. Kirby has a long history, and I mean long. Like, there are so many games you've probably never heard of because I know I haven't heard of them, and yet developers continue to make games starring the savior of Dreamland. I feel that in years past, Kirby has not gotten the treatment he deserves. Of smaller niche games that frankly completely deviate from the games that made Kirby so great in my opinion. Forgotten Lands seems to put all of that discussion to rest with it going with a much bigger budget and a much larger scope, and frankly I'm here for it. Kirby and the Forgotten Lands is being developed by HAL Laboratories and releases on March 25th, 2022 exclusively for the Nintendo Switch. It will cost retail price of $59.99 US. In this video, we're going to go over a brief overview of Kirby and the Forgotten Lands, and then cover what we do know about the combat, the general gameplay, and of course all the sucky powers. That came out wrong, but you know what I mean. Before we jump in, remember if you enjoyed the video to give it a thumbs up, and if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. It really helps out the channel and I would greatly appreciate it. Also, ring that bell to get instant notifications on when the next video drops. Here we go. Here are 5 things you need to know about Kirby and the Forgotten Lands. Setting-wise, Nintendo themselves describe the setting for the game as, quote, a mysterious world with abandoned structures from a past civilization. All of the structures are, well, man-made. Still, this means that there is a mystery as to what happened to this past civilization. This is a place where nature has fused with this civilization, and Waddle Dees are being kidnapped by a new group of enemies known as the Beast Pack. The Beast Pack, well, it sounds like it could be terrifying. They're these little orange foxes, and they're adorable, and I can't take it. As the titular-around hero, you must rescue those Waddle Dees who are being held captive at the end of each level, but they can also be found throughout the stages themselves, but we'll cover a bit more of that in the gameplay section of the video. A little bit about the story, not that there's much story to a game where your protagonist looks like a misshapen pink hairless gerbil, but in the first trailer, Kirby is seen washing up ashore in this mysterious half man-made, half nature setting. We aren't sure how Kirby got there, but I bet you we're gonna find out. What is spotted though throughout the trailer is this hub-like area known as the Waddle Dee Town. Very, very creatively named, not on the nose whatsoever. Look, I get it, the game has a very targeted audience and they lean into it 100%, and I can appreciate that. It's what makes Kirby and Nintendo so great and so loved. We'll talk more about the town in the gameplay section, as it actually has a lot of gameplay elements attached to it. In fact, why don't we just talk about it now? So from a gameplay perspective, the Waddle Dee Town is where you're going to spend quite a bit of time, as it will act as the central hub for Kirby to navigate in and out of. For one thing, the village itself is so lovely and it's rendered beautifully. You can see happy little waddles just waddling around. There's a wise Waddle Dee that will offer some helpful advice and even show you some stats from other players around the world, which I think is pretty neat and a nice way to weave an online element into an otherwise single player or co-op focused experience. You can see lots of activity going on in the town, like fishing, restaurants, and even a toy machine. There are also mini games that are scattered around the town. Speaking of the town, there are gameplay elements where you can actually develop the town itself. By developing the town, it will open more shops based on the number of waddles you've saved, and this is going to give you that nice sense of visible progression. You've probably noticed by now, but this game received the Mario Odyssey treatment, in my opinion. Instead of collecting moons or stars or sunshines, you collect waddles. I think it's a good choice, and while it's not totally original, it does increase the scope and add progression elements to the game itself, which is something that Kirby doesn't usually always have in a linear fashion. The hub area aside, what you're actually going to be doing in this game is platforming, helping little duckies, fighting enemies, collecting items, and more. While this game is more like a half Mario Odyssey makeover, it does look like Forgotten Lands is going to rip a page straight out of its book with the theme of collecting the waddles. While the level structure hasn't been fully detailed, we can speculate based on what we've seen in the trailer. So there's this part that's hopefully showing on the screen right now, where Kirby and the flying chinchilla squirrel thing are seen flying on one of the stars across what looks like an overworld. So this leads me to believe it will be more like a larger open instance levels that have both a requirement to beat the level For example, just start the level, get to the end of the level, beat the boss, and save the Waddles, right? There's that one part. That allows you to progress a story. But then there's also going to be hidden goodies throughout the nooks and crannies of the level that you can go back to and find at any time. The game is going to actively encourage you to search off the beaten path, and it will reward you for finding Waddles. Let's talk a bit about the combat, and well, yeah, it's Kirby, so it's not going to have an intricate combat system such as Dark Souls or Sekiro, but what if? Never mind. But what is here is one of the most inventive and original combat systems in games, and it has been this way since its inception. As Kirby, you can float around, you can suck in your enemies and swallow them to copy their abilities. Wow, that sounds weird when you say it out loud. Anyway, for those who still don't know about Kirby, when you swallow an enemy, you also copy their abilities. These abilities range from giving you a sword, to wielding a giant hammer, to turning yourself into a tornado, and a lot more. You know, I'm actually just going to throw up a list of the known copy abilities that are in the game so far. I don't want to go into too much detail into any of them because, honestly, that's part of the fun. A huge part of the appeal of Kirby games is figuring these copy abilities out for yourself. The joy of just seeing a new enemy and you go, I gotta try that. It's honestly unlike anything else. I remember when I was like 12 playing Kirby and the Amazing Mirror on the Game Boy Advance and trying out the Cupid ability or the nuke ability or the wheel ability. It's just so much fun trying all the different abilities and figuring out which one suits your play style and which one you have the most fun with. It's just something that you have to experience for yourself. So I'll put up the list, and if you're that curious as to what each one of them does specifically, I'm sure there's a video out there that goes into detail. But we're going to see a bunch of returning copy abilities such as the sword, the tornado, ice, hammer, fire, cutter, and the bomb, and a bunch more. I am happy to report that local co-op is supported in Kirby and the Forgotten Lands, which is amazing because not enough games support it. It used to be a bona fide feature, and it has slowly been dying out over the last 2 generations or so. I mean, even Halo Infinite launched without co-op, which has caused a stir amongst the community and upsetting people, myself included, but that's a totally separate topic. Anyway, in the co-op mode, the main player will obviously play as Kirby, while player 2 will play as a Bandana Waddle Dee. While the Bandana Waddle Dee will not have as many features and abilities that are possible when you play as Kirby, he does look like a very, very fun support character. Being able to do things such as throw the spear and obviously damage enemies, and even spin it in like a propeller, kind of like the way Aang does in Avatar: The Last Airbender, and as he does it, it sort of sends down these like spearheads and damages anything below it. It actually looks pretty fun. I'm sure there's a handful of other things that you can do as the Bandana Waddle Dee, but there's nothing available to us at this time. Lastly, let's just cover the boss battles real quick. Not that boss battles are anything new to Kirby as a franchise, but there are some things worth noting in the trailers so far. Forgotten Lands is now home to all manner of new foes, as we've talked about a little bit, such as the little orange foxes, which are known as the Beast Pack. Also, what's seen are these big purple hedgehogs, not to be mistaken with our favorite blue hedgehog. Also, a large snake. Just like past Kirby games, we're set to see some boss fights, such as the one we get to witness in the trailer, which shows this big, giant gorilla that has a mohawk. And after smashing through a window and grabbing this very shocked-looking Kirby, we see a large enemy chucking these giant rocks at our puffball hero and taking swipes with some very, very large Schwarzenegger-sized arms. Waddle Dees can even be seen dangling in a cage around his neck, and they must be saved. The latest trailer also shows off another boss in the form of the Tropic Woods, which is a variant of the Wispy Woods that looks like a palm tree with a goatee. As someone who currently sports a goatee in real life, I can appreciate the representation, even if I am an enemy. And of course, there are also returning favorites such as Meta Knight, which you can see in the trailer. As a game that has traditionally been a 2D side-scroller, this whole entire package is shaping up to be something special. I'm really hoping this game puts on a whole new generation of kids and gamers to Kirby as a hero and as a franchise. Anyway, that's going to do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it. So if you enjoyed the video or found it informative, give it a thumbs up. And if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. It really helps out the channel, and I would greatly appreciate it. What are your thoughts on Kirby and the Forgotten Lands? Again, it's not the most anticipated title that's dropping in the next 2 or 3 months, but I think that any time a Kirby game drops, the people need to know. I'll catch you next time.